This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on evacuation of Indian nationals from Afghanistan. The participants are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Manas Pratim Bhuyan, journalist.
Today is a very significant day for India as India managed to bring back home around 392 people, including 2 Afghan lawmakers, in 3 different flights as part of its mission to evacuate Indians and Afghans who stood by India in the last 1.5 decades in Afghanistan. Sir, how do you see the evacuation mission? Because we managed to bring back the Indians in the face of very, very difficult and hostile situation. How do you see the overall evacuation mission by India?
The External Affairs Minister, while speaking on this issue, said that it's a very difficult and a very complex process because we have a number of Indians who are still based there. And I think when we started the evacuation process, then we had about 1,500 Indians who were there. And they were, of course, working, first of all, in our embassy and all the Indian staff there. Just before that, we also had evacuated our people, our diplomats and personnel who were working at the consulate in Mazar-e-Sharif. Last month in July, we had closed our consulate in Kandahar when we saw that the Taliban forces were reaching the borders of Kandahar. There, of course, there were somewhat smaller numbers, so about 50 of them, they had come back. And earlier this month, we had also issued an advisory to all Indians saying that they should leave by commercial flights to whichever that they can get because things are becoming very dangerous and things are becoming very difficult. Now, to respond to your specific question, I think it is a very challenging task. And it is kudos and thanks and salute to our Air Force, our diplomats, our personnel that they are carrying through this exercise. Today we have had these 3 aircrafts. We had 168 passengers in the C-17 Globemaster that came directly from Kabul to India. In that we had 107 Indians and 68, and the rest of them were other nationals. And you mentioned about the 2 Afghan members of parliament who we have brought back. Then we got also from Dushanbe about 80 of them because they had been airlifted to Dushanbe from Kabul yesterday, and today they have been brought from Dushanbe in an Air India flight to Delhi. And the third is, again, as you put it, these were about 80 Indians who were working with different multinationals and global companies. And so they had been evacuated from there by the US and NATO forces to Doha. And they were brought back from there. They are Indians, so they have been brought back from there. So it's a very, very challenging task because, as you know, there are about 40,000 people who are inside the airport. Everyone is desperate to get out of Afghanistan. And there are, I'm told, more than 1 lakh people who are outside the airport. Today, there are reports from the British Ministry of Defense that 7 people died in the airport in Afghanistan because of heat strokes, because no facilities are available. They are sitting in these very, very difficult circumstances. It is truly a humanitarian crisis of gigantic proportions. And we also have seen even before that, there has been firing, there has been shooting. Earlier, there were 7 people who were killed, 2 more people were killed yesterday, and even before that. So the situation at the Kabul airport is very, very difficult. We know that the commercial flights were closed quite some time ago. So there is only one airport that is operational, that is the military airport, and only military aircraft can go. So we have operated flight of the C-17 Globemaster, which has gone there. And as I said, which airlifted 168 people here and about 80 people yesterday from Kabul to Dushanbe. The other challenge is why we are using Dushanbe as a transit point is because we have got 2 slots per day at the Kabul airport in which we have to take out our people from there. And those slots are very short. These are the slots that have been provided by the US and NATO forces. Now the airport is by and large being managed by the United States security personnel. But today I understand that some British forces have also joined to support them. So they are providing about 25 slots per day, and out of that, two have been given to India, and those slots are very, very short. So that is why we have our C-17 Globemasters, which are standing in readiness as standby in Dushanbe, so that as soon as we get the time, they can fly from Dushanbe to Kabul, and that's a very short distance. So they can reach there and they can get the people and get them back. You know, the other challenge for getting our people out of Kabul is basically to get to the airport, because the Taliban has put in so many road checks and road blocks that it takes a huge time. You know, for instance, when we had our ambassador to Kabul, Hridayan Tandon, and the whole diplomatic staff, they were coming to the airport on Monday night, Tuesday early morning, and they were being escorted by the Taliban because otherwise the other Taliban had said that you cannot proceed to the green zone, you cannot proceed to the airport. So we had asked them for facilitating this movement. And this convoy of about 150 people from the embassy to the airport, Manish, it is the distance between the two is only about 3 kilometers, and it took them 5 hours to cover this distance.
So coming to the overall situation in Afghanistan, what do you see in Afghanistan today? In fact, I mean, where does Afghanistan go from here? Is it a total failure of the US and its allies? After 20 years of war, they have left Afghanistan to the Taliban. What relations that we could learn from the current situation in Afghanistan? How do you see the situation pan out in the next few months? Will there be a stable government in Afghanistan? And what is India's position in Afghanistan as it looks at a bleak future?
First, to respond to your last question, what is India's position? I think India is the most liked and loved country amongst the people of Afghanistan, because India has truly worked for the benefit of the people of Afghanistan. You know, people say that India has invested about $3 billion in Afghanistan. How will it protect those investments? We need to recognize that as far as India is concerned, this is a sort of investment to earn the love and affection and warmth of the Afghan people. And I think it has already given us return, because India is very well liked by the people, Indian culture, and I think it is going to stand us in very good stead, because our people-to-people connect is extremely strong, and that will continue to stay with us. But still, in terms of the projects that India has done there, whether it is clinics, whether it is hospitals, whether it is schools or colleges, universities, waterways, they are basically for the benefit of the people there. And if you look at some of the other countries like Pakistan, the only thing that they have done is, in terms of fomenting terrorism, they have created Taliban in the early 1990s, and they have continued to support it. Now, your question was also, what has the United States done wrong? Has it been a failure? I think over the last 20 years, what it has done, it has made a difference to the life of the Afghan people. You know, in terms of girls, in terms of women, girls are able to go to school, women are able to go to work, women are able to study, they are able to go to university. I think they have excelled themselves in many areas. So there is a great change that has taken place. But what I would say, failure of the United States, I'll put it in two ways. Number one, the United States knew very well that it is Pakistan which is sheltering the Taliban. It is providing safe havens to Taliban. You would recall the tweet of Mr. Donald Trump on the 1st of January 2018, where he said that we have provided $34 billion of coalition support fund of aid to Pakistan, and they are sheltering the same terrorists that we want. He had threatened that this will not go on. There have been 4 presidents. None of them took any action against those safe havens, against the shelters provided by Pakistan to the Taliban. That unless there was action, unless these shelters, unless these safe havens were destroyed, talking to Taliban will not help. So this, I think, the writing was clear on the wall. The second failure, I would put it, is the manner of the departure of the United States and the NATO forces. Mr. Biden has always been wanting to get out of Afghanistan. In fact, starting right from 2009, 2010, all presidents have wanted to get out. The whole idea of establishment of a Taliban office in Doha in 2013 was that they wanted to negotiate with the Taliban to get out. But it could have been done in a more responsible way. We're getting some conditions from the Taliban that they would ensure peace, they would ensure stability, and that there would be a peaceful transfer of power. Unfortunately, none of that was done. And the result of that we are seeing today.
You have rightly said that, in fact, situation is a bit grim because of Pakistan's support to various terrorist organizations who are operating or assisting Taliban. We have seen indication of China's willingness to recognize Taliban. Moscow has also been giving indication that it may be open to doing business with Taliban. And we have seen Pakistan's growing proximity with China. In the current context of Pakistan getting closer to China and Pakistan having a strong influence over Taliban, how do you see the security implications for all these, for the region, particularly India?
As far as Pakistan, China, Russia, Iran, Turkey are concerned, all of them, of course, at the moment are rejoicing that the United States has been evicted out of Afghanistan and vacuum has been created and they will have a much bigger role to play. But in my view, their rejoicing and their exaltation is going to be short-lived, because as far as Pakistan is concerned, we have the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which will also get active. It will get strategic space in Afghanistan, and they are going to launch these terrorist attacks against Pakistan. We've seen recently the bus attack in which 9 Chinese were killed. We also saw in 2014 the attack on the army public school in which more than 140 children were killed. The Durand Line would also become active because the Afghans don't recognize the Durand Line. So things are going to be difficult for Pakistan. For China also, because we have the East Turkestan Islamic movement, which is fighting along with the Taliban, and they will get active in Xinjiang. Similarly for Russia and Central Asian countries, we have ISIS, we have Daesh, we have Al-Qaeda. So all of them have been acting with the Taliban. And as far as Iran and Turkey are concerned, I think the Taliban is not going to be very collaborative with them. As far as India is concerned, I think for us, the first topmost priority is to evacuate our people from Afghanistan. Once this is done, I think we need to wait for the Taliban to establish their government. They are taking their time. So once they establish the government and once they are able to pronounce their policies, because, just a press conference by one of the officials who has never been seen earlier, but who is very persuasive and people say that, he's very pleasant, he talks nice. But talking nice is not good enough, and that is not policy. So we need to see what the policies of the Taliban are. Are they going to respect human rights? Are they going to respect women's rights? Are they going to respect India's red lines that they will not launch any terrorist attacks against India in Jammu and Kashmir? So I think we'll have to see their policies, and then only we will be able to take a call on how to proceed forward.
Thank you, Mr. Sajjanhar. You have elaborated all points in your analysis. Thank you, Diplomat Sajjanhar, for your deep
Thank you,
insights.
Manas.
You were listening to a discussion on evacuation of Indian nationals from Afghanistan. The participants were Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Manas Pratyum Bhuan, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.